Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Speak On It Show. I am your host, R.W. Coolins, episode 27. Let's go. Give me them horns. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, R.W. Coolins. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, Michelle Long. Good morning, Michelle Long. Thank you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the continued support. First and foremost, giving honor to the guy who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. Good morning, y'all. I'm in a good mood. Let me just start off with this. I'm in the Christmas spirit, y'all. You can tell I got all my red on. Got my poinsettias in the back. Got Santa Claus looking over the top. I'm in a good mood, y'all. I'm in a Christmas type of mood. However, the news I got to spread to you is not Christmassy. Let me just be real. The news I'm going to give you today, the information I'm going to give to you today is not Christmas-y. But what I'm going to do at the end, we're going to talk about Christmas a little bit, but we're going to get into that as we go. Good morning, my sister April Weed. Good morning. Thanks for the support. Like I said, I'm in a good mood, man. Christmas. It's just something about Christmas for me. It's just me. It's for me, but it brings, makes me reflect back. You know what? We get into that a little later. Let's go and get these formalities out the way because I don't want to get ahead of myself. Follow me. rwcoolins.com. That's the website. You can go there, get all the information you want, all the information you need about the show. And all the links are there for Facebook, YouTube, Spreaker.com, for the audio. If you just want to listen to audio, if you want to see the videos, you can go to YouTube. We're also broadcasting live right now on YouTube and Facebook. So if you have any comments, as you've seen, you can put your comments up. I'll put them up as we go into this conversation. Just join in if you want. Hey, don't be scared. Say what you mean what you say. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. Call in number 844-904-2665, 844-904-2665. You want to call in, you want to conversate, feel free. Phone lines are open the entire show. But if no phone calls come in when we get near that hour mark is usually when I try to cut off the show. The phone lines will shut off at the same time at about an hour into the show. So we're about 7 minutes in as far as when I put the phone lines open, but we ain't gonna worry about that too much. But phone lines are open if you want to call in or whatsoever. Good morning, Judy Mills. Good morning, my sister. I appreciate the support. Appreciate the support. So let's get on into this. Get on into this. Shots fired. Shots fired. Not those type of shots, though. Shots fired. So everybody's seeing is in the news. Is all over the United States of America right now. People are getting the vaccine, the shots. The shots have been fired in the arms of individuals. But let me give you some information about what's going on with these shots. So right now, Mike Pence got a shot on Friday. Vice President Mike Pence got his shot on Friday. Dr. Sanjay Gupta also got his shot. That's my man right there, Sanjay Gupta. He got his shot on Friday. And Joe Biden, I got hair in my mouth or something. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be getting, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris' husband will all be getting their shots on Monday. So the shots are out there. They're going around. They're getting them into people. They're doing the due diligence and everything. You know, good morning, Lady Michelle. Good morning, Lady Michelle. Thank you for the support. They're doing the due diligence, getting these things out. And the thing is, we see Mike Pence up here getting the shot, right? We see Mike Pence getting the shot, vice president. You know, it is what it is. But all these naysayers who said from the beginning this was a hoax and the coronavirus was not real and all that stuff, where do they fall in line as far as getting shots? I'm curious about this because I know all these congressmen and senators and all those people in these elected positions are going to get these shots eventually before the normal everyday people. But I'm just curious, why, if you said this was a hoax from the beginning, why would you even want to get the shot? Just out of curiosity, why would you want to get the shot? Ethan Johnson, good morning, my brother. Coolins, Georgia canvassing for the vote and listening to speak on it. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate the support every Saturday. I appreciate you. But those people who said this was a hoax, who said this was not real, who said it would go away, it would disappear and everything, why would they be in line to get shots? Just a question I have, you know, because my thing is, if I've ever not believed in something, I'm not lining up to get it provided to me. That's just me. I don't know about you, but that's just me. But let me tell you some negatives about this shot. So in Illinois, 4 employees had an allergic reaction to it. Good morning, Gary Burns. Good morning. Good morning. Appreciate the support, brother. So in Illinois, 4 employees had allergic reaction to the shot. 3,000 people in Illinois have been vaccinated. Now, these were all healthcare workers as well. But the 4 employees that had allergic reaction, they had tingling and an elevated heart rate. Tingling and an elevated heart rate. And this was in Illinois, one individual. Okay. And in Alaska, 3 healthcare workers had allergic reaction to the shot. 300 vaccines were given that day. 3 people had allergic reactions. Here what they had. One had an anaphylactic reaction 10 minutes after getting the injection. Her tongue swole, she had tongue swelling, hoarse was voice, and she had difficulty breathing. She was given 2 doses of the EpiPen, and then she was released after 6 hours. But it don't stop there. The other one of the 3 had shortness of breath, elevated heart rate, and a rash covering her face and her whole upper torso. She had to be put in the hospital. She was given steroids and an Epidrip. She was released from the hospital the next day after she had stabilized. So she was in the hospital for a day trying to get stabilized. And they gave her the Epidrip and the steroids. Third person, she had eye puffiness, I'm not sure, eye puffiness, lightheadedness, and a scratchy throat 10 minutes after the injection. And they gave her EpiPen, EpiPen, Pepcid, and Benadryl. Back to work within an hour. I bring these things up to let everybody know that even though, and in spite of the fact that they're saying that this vaccine is safe, there are people who are having allergic reactions to this vaccine. I would tell you, if you're in line, or if you're a healthcare worker or a first responder that's due to, get this shot, one of the first ones, be aware. And don't just blow the symptoms off after you get this shot. Because, as I'm reading here, most of these happen within 10 minutes after getting the shot. Some 10 minutes, one was an hour. These shots that they're getting, the vaccine that they're giving, it's been pushed through. As we always say, it takes a lot more time for them to do the research that they're supposed to do on a normal basis. But because of this coronavirus and this pandemic, they decided to rush it through. And now we're seeing signs that none of these were really life-threatening per se, but when your tongue swells up and you got a hoarse voice and you got rashes on your upper face, on your face and your upper torso, it causes concern for me. And it should cause concern for you and anybody in line to get these shots. The shots have been fired, they're shooting up arms. I'm telling you, be careful. That's all I'm going to say is I'm not going to tell anyone not to take take the vaccine if you're in line to get the vaccine, if you're one of the healthcare workers or first responders, but be careful. Be aware of the side effects that are going on. Read up on the vaccine. Find out what those side effects are so you are aware. So when you do go and get this shot, you're not, going in blind. You have the information that you need. And there's some people that have to get the vaccine. There's some people that can wait. I'm one that's going to wait. Those that can get the vaccine or have to get the vaccine, just do your due diligence and read up about the side effects and what symptoms you could have from this. And if you have any allergies from the beginning, you need to be aware of that. And you also need to tell those who are providing you the shots that you are allergic to certain things, because there's no telling what can counter this shot. Just putting it out there, just giving you information, just so you know. Everything that look good to you might not be good for you. That's what they always used to say when I was a young man, and I believe it wholeheartedly. Everything that look good to you might not be good for you. I don't know if everybody's seen on it. Well, I'm sure everybody's seen on the news. Tom Cruise went off on some people on set. They're shooting Mission Impossible. I think it's 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know. Mission Impossible. But they were all gathered around a computer, no mask on, looking at something on the computer, talking and not social distance, everything. And Tom Cruise, they had the audio. I listened to it. He went off on them. He went off about them putting people in jeopardy. Not only putting people in jeopardy, but having to putting it in jeopardy to have to shut the scenes down, or the production down, which people are going to lose jobs, people are going to lose money, families are going to suffer from all this. He went into a long, I would say dissertation, but it was a rant. He went in on them. And it's something that sparked in my mind to think that this is something that should have been going on a long time ago in our circles, when people are not conforming to what we need to do as far as the social distancing, wearing the mask. Someone needs to call them out. He called them out. And I seen not too long after that, I think it was 4 or 5 people that were in that group. They ended up quitting that day, or the next day they quit because, he jumped on them. That's fine. They're replaceable. Other people out there looking for jobs. The bottom line is Tom Cruise did with his due diligence in telling those people exactly how he felt, because this is his set, this is his movie, and these are his people that he's responsible for. Judy Mills, he was real passionate about it, his rant. Oh yeah, he was. He didn't play. He didn't play at all. He just let it all hang out. And when you hear those type of things from people in those positions, sometimes you cringe. But in this case, I think he was in his right. He said what he had to say. If you don't like it, go home. And that's what they did. 4 or 5 of them went home, and they're going to continue going on, doing what they got to do for the movie and keeping people safe. Marlene Parker, thank you. I personally am not taking the shot either. I need to wait and see someone with lung disease get a shot and survive. You're right. And that's what I'm saying. These are things that I try to put this information out there for everybody, because everybody's situation is different, because underlying conditions that you may have, that they all talk about, that you could catch the coronavirus. But in the meantime, what are they saying as far as people with underlying conditions, how this will affect them getting the shot? We haven't heard anything about that. So this is kind of like, when they're testing rats and stuff in a laboratory, because they haven't done their due diligence. And then, as I mentioned last week, for them to tell us, for Dr. Fauci, who I respect, but for him to harp on the fact that there was a Black female that worked on this virus or this vaccine to make us feel comfortable about taking it. I still have a little problem with that. I don't have a problem with many of the things he said, but I had a problem with the fact that he's trying to push it because a Black woman worked on this vaccine to make us think that it's okay for everybody. Ethan Johnson, Tom sounded like a leader to me. True leader. Sometimes you got to jump in that in order to get the results you need. Sometimes you got to get down and dirty with it. And, as much as they say about him with the Scientology and things like that, after that day when he did that rant, I can let all that go. I can let it all go, for the simple fact he stepped up, and as a leader, as you mentioned, as a leader, to make sure his people were safe. Not those 4 or 5 that were disregarding everybody else's safety, but the safety of everyone else on that set. I appreciate him for that. Transition, dereliction of duties. Dereliction of duties. This is what I'm going to call it. It's a dereliction of duties going on up there in the government as a whole. Russia Russia conducted a cyber attack against the United States. The intrusion was across a number of government agencies. One of the most concerning is the Department of Energy's Nuclear Security Administration, with the nuclear bombs and all that kind of stuff. They hacked the system in that Department of Energy, in the Department of Energy. They don't know the full scope of the hack as of yet. Homeland Security's cybersecurity unit is still investigating, trying to find out what's going on. But experts fear the worst may be yet to come. Experts fear that the worst may be yet to come. Now, this, for me, is a big issue because you're talking about nuclear security issues that they've hacked into. Some of the things that, us as normal citizens don't even know about, but we have Russia hacking into this. President Trump has been silent, hasn't said anything, hasn't pushed back on anything, hasn't said anything whatsoever about this hack and the level of what it is. He has said nothing, not a word. Why? Because it's Russia? Because it's Putin? Come on, y'all. Let's be real. This is dereliction of duties, if you ask me. Dereliction of duty. And let's get into another part of this. In the meantime, while this is going on, Peter Navarro, one of the president's advisors, wrote a 30-page report alleging election fraud. 36-page report, alleging election fraud. So they're still on this election fraud, but we got Russia hacking and cyber attacking the United States of America. But they're not concerned about that. Also, Mike Pence is due to oversee the final confirmation on January 6th of the voting, all the electoral votes and everything to confirm Joe Biden is the president. And then right after that, he's planning to leave town and go to the Middle East and Europe on January 6th. Their reign is over January 20th. What is the trip for? What I've read is they're saying he's running out of town because once he certifies this, him and Trump may not be on the same page after that. Just something I've been reading, different variations of things going on. Also, Congress, as we know, failed to pass the defense bill and pass the 2-day extension. So they're going to be working through the weekend. Come Monday, if they don't have a resolution, the government shuts down. We've dealt with this around Christmas time for the last 4 years, I think. 3, 4, 5 years, maybe 6. I don't know. It's been a while. But every year we come up to Christmas and they're talking about shutting the government down. And we did shut down at one time, the government. It was shut down, the government, and they failed to pass a $900 billion pandemic relief package, which included $600 stimulus checks, half of what they gave in the beginning, vaccine distribution, coming up with a way on how these vaccines are going to be distributed to normal, everyday people like me and you. Jobless benefits, the states are running out of money to be able to pay the unemployment benefits. So they're asking for relief from the government, from the federal government. And that's in this package as well. And then small business loans, which, the small businesses have been suffering. But when they came out with these PPP loans, all the big corporations got loans, but the small everyday mom and pop stores and small businesses got nothing. This is where we're at. Dereliction of duties is what I call it, because all these things that are going on didn't just happen yesterday. And this Russian hack that nobody seems to want to say anything about. I did see something this morning where Mike Pompeo came out and said that, he sees and he's pushing back on Russia and everything, but obviously they're not pushing back hard enough because this is not the first time Russia has hacked since Donald Trump's been in office. Let's just be honest about this. These things are going on and nobody's doing anything about it. And Johnson, if you were the mob, would you speak against them? Yeah. No. Well, like they always say, if you go against the mob, you might find a horse head in your bed. Just saying. I mean, the bottom line is, it's not the fact of whether they need to speak out. This man ran for president. He was elected as president. He has been dividing this country as president. And at the same time, he has not pushed back on certain leaders of certain countries that he's buddies with. We can go through the whole gamut, and I'm not going to go to, but I'll just mention a few. We talked about, in the beginning, we talked about the wall. The wall's not even done. And Mexico didn't pay for the wall. We talked about his meetings with North Korea. North Korea, they still doing what they were doing back in the day. Saudi Arabia, they killed a journalist, and nobody was held accountable for killing of that journalist because they were Saudis who did it. And the fact that they're selling weapons to Saudi, so they don't want to have no kind of, discord between us and Saudi Arabia. All these things are the grease pockets, not to take care of humanity. I have a problem with that. We all should have a problem with that. Even those 72 million people who voted for him should have a problem with this. 72, 74, whatever the number is. We should all, as American citizens, have a problem with what's going on right in front of our eyes with this president in his last days as it's waning down. Ethan Johnson. Why is it that we can rush to open schools, rush to open the economy, rush to get a vaccine, but the so-called leaders of America can't rush to take care of the American people? These MFers. Thank you for abbreviating that, my brother. Well, you know, the thing is, priorities. It's about priorities. They're not prioritizing. And here's the thing that I always say. You have to have a budget to run your home, to maintain your livelihood in your home. If you go outside of that budget or you don't do the things you need to do for that budget, something's going to suffer. And you can't just go to anybody and everybody asking them to bail you out because you didn't do your due diligence. But the government, it seems, as long as they're getting paid, as people would say, you know, take away some of the things that they have. Take away some of the things that they have and then see how they function. It's a different story for those sitting up high, looking down low. And I'm not talking about Jesus right now. I'm talking about these politicians who continue to take the American citizens for granted in everything they do. Ethan Johnson, Russia owns Trump's butt. Never forget Atlantic City. He has been selling America out since he took office. Well, as I said before, and I'll say it again, all these things will come out. Somebody's going to write a book. All these people that should have been saying things at this time are going to finally start coming out and saying things, and we're all going to know the truth behind a lot of these things. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Mr. Hoodie, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate the support, my brother. Ethan Johnson, priorities or continuity of government? Combination of both. It's a combination of both priorities and the continuity of government, because here's the thing. The priority should be the people. The continuity of the government is to make sure that they're doing the will for the people, not just for their pockets as lobbyists and different things like that. I think I'm going to run to be a lobbyist sometime. Melvin Jackson, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Appreciate everybody tuning in this morning. Let's go ahead and transition from that. Lying Lightfoot. Lying Lightfoot. Now, this is, I think everybody knows who this is. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Chicago. You know, there's a lot of things that people say about her, but I'm not going to get into, I refuse to get into, you know, talking about her looks, talking about what she wears and all this. I'm not going to get into that. What I'm going to get into is the fact of the decisions she's made and things that she's done recently that don't sit well with me. So on Thursday, she admitted that she knew about the wrongful raid of a Miss Anjanette Young's home. I don't know if anybody's seen this in the news, but Mayor Lightfoot came out Thursday in a press conference, and she finally admitted that she knew about Miss Anjanette Young's raid of her home. On Wednesday, though, the day before, she said she didn't know about the raid, or she hadn't seen the video until she seen it on CBS 2's website in Chicago. This raid happened back in November of 2019. Miss Young was wrongly targeted by Chicago Police Department. They burst into her home, Breonna Taylor. They burst into her home, Breonna Taylor. Body cam video shows at least 12 officers entered her home. 12 officers entered her home. She was preparing for bed when they busted in. And she was unable to get dressed or answer the door before they kicked it in. So I guess they didn't, you know, I guess it wasn't a no-knock warrant. They knocked. She wasn't able to get there because she was trying to get some clothes on or whatever, because, you know, a lot of people sleep naked. Nothing wrong with that. That's your home. You do what you do. But she was unable to get her clothes and everything. They bust in. They searched her house while she was handcuffed and naked in her living room. So the whole time, body cameras are showing all this where they're going in and out the house, 12 of them now, and the body cameras, and she's butt naked, handcuffed in the middle of her living room. Then finally, one officer gave her a blanket, but because she was handcuffed, she couldn't keep the blanket up to cover her. Kept falling off. Couldn't keep it up because she was handcuffed. She told them over 40 times that they had the wrong address, that whoever they were looking for, whatever they were looking for, that was the wrong place. So after the fact, Ms. Young filed an FOIA request in November 2019, which is a Freedom of Information Act, which means that she sued to get video footage and everything about the raid, why the raid happened. She wanted all the information. And this was done back in November 2019, right after they raided her home. Mayor Lightfoot said on Wednesday, there was no request filed for the video. And then Thursday, she came back and corrected that statement again. So on Wednesday, she's put a lot of falsehoods out there about what she knew, what she didn't know, about what was, what lawsuits were put in, the Freedom of Information Act, all these things she said on Wednesday. She had to backtrack on Thursday and say, oh, yeah, by the way, I didn't know about that. And then she says, her last statement, we will do better and we will win back the trust that we have lost this week. Let me read that again, because I got something I want to say on that. We will do better and we will win back the trust that we have lost this week. This happened in November of 2019. 2019, November, a year ago. And you're saying that you're going to win back the trust that you lost this week? No, you lost trust back in November of 2019. The difference is nobody other than Miss Anjanette, what's her name? Let me get it right. Anjanette Young, the only people that knew were the police, you and Anjanette Young, of what went on back in November 2019. But now you're saying with everything that went on this week, with your lies, that you're going to try to restore the faith in you and the police department going forward. You've done a disservice to this young lady. And for them to leave her butt naked in the living room with no blanket, body cameras going, all the video, and they had the video, but they wouldn't release the video to her. They had the video. And when they released it to the news, they blocked, the body and everything out. Come on. Everybody at this point knows that she was naked. Everyone knows that she was wrongfully done. Everyone knows what the situation was behind this raid. A wrong house, cover up, and Lori Lightfoot, Mayor Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, lying that she knew nothing about it. When in fact, she said that she signed the paperwork for, or she's seen the email traffic about the Freedom of Information Act request, and she let it go. She figured somebody else would take care of it. At the end of the day, she did not do her job. She was asleep at the wheel. And the reason she was asleep at the wheel, let's just be honest about it. They didn't want a black eye put on the police department for, number one, a bad raid, a botched raid, and number two, not taking care of that woman, Miss Young, in the manner they should have, treating her like trash, like she didn't matter when they went in her home and found her naked, and nobody took the time until later on to cover her up. And when they did cover her up, it was just faulty because they didn't cover her up to the point where she could stay covered up because she had the handcuffs on, so she couldn't hold the blanket up over her body. Not only is it embarrassing, it's disrespectful, demeaning. All the different words you can think about go into this case. They treated her like nothing. And then to find out that they had the wrong place. And then for a year, they covered it up and didn't give her the information that she needed when she put in the case for the Freedom of Information Act to get the body cam footage and the warrants and everything to find out what went wrong through her lawyer, and nobody did anything. Disrespectful. But these are the things that are happening in our communities. Good morning, Kamiko Sewell King. Appreciate the support. These are things that are happening in our communities that you hear about. This was a year later that this finally came out. And then Mayor Lightfoot says on Wednesday, she knew nothing about it. But then on Thursday, we find out she knew everything about it. These are the people we're voting in the offices, y'all. These are the people that we're recycling in office over and over and over again. And let's just be honest about it. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Let me say that one more time. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Her, and I'm going to go on this right now. Mayor Lightfoot, as an African-American woman, knowing and seeing the video of another African-American woman wrongly treated in her own home, and you say nothing, do nothing until it becomes public a year later. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. Remember that. Remember that as you go forward in life. Damn shame how they treated that woman. Damn shame. But let's go into some other ones. After further review, let's stay on this criminal justice thing. Because I found some cases. Now, these four cases jumped out at me this week. And it's unsettling with my soul. And I'm going to read them to you. But just know that all four of these men will be able to enjoy Christmas this year at home. But it's amazing to me that I could find four men wrongfully accused of crimes being released within the same week, where the sentences have been either commuted or totally exonerated, but they've served years and years and years in jail for things that they didn't do. And let's get into this. In Michigan, a man named Walter Forbes. He was a young college student in 1982 when he stepped between two groups of men that were fighting. Dennis Hall, who was in the fight, shot Walter Forbes 4 times as retaliation because he jumped in to stop the fight. Dennis Hall died in an arson fire while he was on bail for shooting Mr. Forbes. Walter Forbes heard of the fire, heard it, Dennis Hall died in the fire. And the first thing he said was, some way they're going to try to blame this on me. And sure enough, they blamed it on him. Forbes and 2 others were accused of setting the fire. One passed a polygraph, one got acquitted, and Forbes was convicted. Witnesses recanted, and it was found to be insurance fraud after all these years by the owner. Walter Forbes served nearly 40 years for a crime he didn't commit. 40 years for a crime he didn't commit. So he served time from 1982 up until this week for a crime he didn't commit. And they found out that the arson fire was set by the owner of the building, who died, who's already passed away, and the witness that they had testify, who was paid by 2 people, and she was threatened that if she didn't testify against Mr. Forbes, that they were going to kill her family. And she said she had family. She had, she was 16 years old, but she had family. They said they're going to kill her parents and all this stuff. So she testified. She recanted her story years later after they did more investigating. But this man served 40 years for a crime he didn't commit. North Carolina, Ronnie Wallace Long. Ronnie Wallace Long was found guilty of rape and burglary in 1976 and sentenced to life in prison. Back in August, he was freed after serving 44 years. The judge found that evidence from the crime scene did not match Mr. Long's and was deliberately withheld by law enforcement. The judge found that evidence from the crime scene did not match Mr. Long's and was deliberately withheld by law enforcement. Mr. Long was one of 5 men pardoned this week by North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. The other 4 men pled guilty to charges ranging from robbery to second-degree murder State law makes all of them eligible to file claims for compensation for being wrongly convicted. Let's go back to Mr. Ronnie Wallace Long. 44 years he served. 44 years he served in jail because someone lied and said he raped them and that he did a burglary. 44 years Mr. Wallace Long served in jail, wrongfully convicted, given a life sentence. He served 44 years. Why? Why does this happen in the United States of America? We're going to get to that. Louisiana, Fate Winslow. In 2008, he was approached by a plainclothes undercover police officer. The officer was looking for marijuana. Winslow, who was homeless at the time, borrowed a bike, and 10 minutes later, he came back with 2 small bags of marijuana worth $20. Underclothes police officer asked for marijuana. He came back with 2 bags with the street value of $20. Winslow, in his past, had 3 priors. He had burglary of a business in 1985, where he was 17 years old. Car burglary in 1995, he was 27 years old. And cocaine possession in 2004 when he was 36 years old. And then in 2008, he brought back those 2 bags of a street value of $20 of marijuana, and he was arrested. Life in prison is what they sentenced him to for the marijuana. Because all the other charges, yeah, he had a record, but he was put in life in prison for $20 worth of marijuana. On Wednesday, 16 December, his case was resentenced to 12 years credit for time served. So the 12 years he served, they gave him time served. And this is where, thanks to the Innocent Project from New Orleans, Executive Director G. Park, who's a lawyer, this is what he said. There are hundreds of individuals serving life sentences for nonviolent crimes in Louisiana. Instead of throwing the book at Mr. Winslow and sentencing him to life imprisonment just because we could, does not mean that it was constitutional, legal, and humane. He received an obscenely excessive sentence given his life circumstances and crime, and today we are correcting that unconstitutional, inhumane sentence. 12 years later. 12 years later, we're finally letting a man out of jail who had a life sentence for a $20 street value of marijuana, where now marijuana is sold in dispensaries on every corner in Las Vegas. But he had a life sentence, not because of what he did with the $20 of worth of marijuana, but all his priors, which is where we go into the George Floyd, where they talked about George Floyd like he was nothing because he had priors. And I got one more, y'all. I got one more. Judy Mills, these officers should serve the time for cover up. Yes, they should. But there's never any backlash on the officers, if you notice. There's never any backlash. There's never anything done to the lawyers. There's never anything done to these court-appointed attorneys that don't do their jobs. There's nothing done to those people who are in the system that dictate what happens to the people that happen to fall into the system. Nothing at all, nothing at all, nothing at all. Terry Perkins, great show, bro. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate your support. So this last one, Mayan Burrell. I don't know if everybody's seen this week in Minnesota. In 2002, an 11-year-old girl was killed by a stray bullet. 16-year-old Mayan Burrell was arrested and convicted to life in prison. After years of fighting the system and tens of thousands of dollars on lawyers, the Associated Press found new evidence and serious flaws in the police investigation. Failure to collect a corner store surveillance video could have prevented all this. Mr. Burrell told them from the beginning that he was in the store, and if they pulled the video at this store he was in, it would, exonerate him from being at the scene of the crime. However, they never went and got the video from the store. The only reason he was released, 6 jailhouse informants who benefited from testifying, were the reasons that he was able to be up and be out of jail. One of the informants' time was cut from 16 years to 3 years because he gave evidence that was truthful to Mr. Burrell's exoneration. They say that these people determined that police had tunnel vision while pursuing Mr. Burrell. They never did their due diligence. They never did the investigation they were supposed to do. Mr. Burrell's sentence was commuted, not fully exonerated, but it was commuted to 20 years, but not pardoned. He will serve 2 years under supervised release and have to wear an ankle bracelet. Now, in this case, I'm a little torn, because if he's found not guilty and he's been exonerated, why are they commuting his sentence to 20 years? Where now that he's being released, he has to wear an ankle bracelet for 2 years, where he should have been exonerated for the full amount of time he served and such. I'm going to go out on a limb. The reason they didn't totally exonerate it is because Minnesota probably has the law, as well as North Carolina, where he can go back and sue them for money, for wrongful conviction. But here's another caveat to this. Y'all remember Senator Amy Klobuchar? that was running for president on the Democratic side, she was a prosecutor on this case. She did no justice to Mr. Burrell when she was a prosecutor in this case back, what was this, 2002? And this was somebody running for president that people were actually behind to become the president of the United States. But then you have a case like this, Mr. Burrell being wrongfully sentenced, that she was the prosecutor on, or she was somewhere in the mix. I won't say prosecutor, but I can't remember exactly what but she was one of the main people that prosecuted him. And she was running for president. And people were supporting her to become the president of the United States. Now, I've read you 4 different stories of 4 different states, 4 different black men, same sentences, life in prison, sentenced to life in prison, being wrongly convicted for something they did not do. All this week. They've all been released this week. 4 different states, 4 different men, all this week. Life in prison, wrongly convicted. It bothers me. It bothers me. It bothers me. Because I want you to think about this when I say this. These are 4 cases that have come to light. And we know that the jails, prisons, whatever you want to call them, correctional facilities are full of these same type stories. And it's not because of what they did. It's more of who they are and how they look. Without being able to get the proper representation, when these court-appointed attorneys don't have your best interest at hand, they tell you to take a plea deal even though you didn't do anything. When we talk about redoing the justice system, the correctional system, the prison reform, everything you can think about, police reform, prison reform, the laws, systemic racism, anything you can think about that deals with these cases right here is the reason why we get so upset when we see injustices done to us on a daily basis. 44 years of a man's life behind bars for something he did not do. I want you to sit and think. Take 44 years of your life and eliminate it. Just brush it aside. I'm 54 years old. So that would take me back to 10. So from 10 to 54, all the things I've been able to do, all the things I've been able to accomplish, all the people I've met in my time, people I've seen come, people I've seen go, the life I've been able to live, the freedom I've enjoyed, taken away like that. Because somebody chose me to take the fall for a crime because they were too damn lazy to do the investigation that they should have done. 44 years. And that's just one, as I mentioned, of many, many cases that are out there. And we wonder why. People wonder why. And let me put this in there. I would ask anybody to give me a time or a situation where someone of non-color has served anywhere between even 5 years to 44 years for a crime they didn't commit, and you see them exonerated, and it's all over the news that this person did not do the crime that he was convicted of. I just need one. I just need one. Because as much as I've looked, I can't find it. I cannot find it. We hear about the guys that, back in the day, the white supremacists, the KKK members back in the day who were known to have killed people of color. And They finally get all the investigation done, and they find out that he did do the crime that they thought he did years ago, and then they bring him up to sentence, and he's so old that they don't even lock him up. They say, he's about to die. No use in putting him behind bars. Because they didn't do the due diligence at the time, or they chose not to. And then you see these stories of these 4 men, all released within a week. The only good thing about this release is that they'll all be home for Christmas this year. However, what about those other 44 Christmases? Or however many years they've served? What about all those Christmases? What about all those days they had to talk through the plexiglass and the telephone to their family members? See, we don't think about all these things when we're going through our everyday lives of people who are wrongly convicted and sitting in jail and rotting because nobody is taking up their case. But you have some good people that would take these cases. But if you don't have the money or the means to get a lawyer on your side, to be able to dig and dig and dig, we see it in movies all the time, but we never can fathom that that's going to happen to somebody that we may know. That somebody's going to actually go out there and dig and dig and dig to find the truth behind the falsehoods that we were convicted for. I'll give you a story of my own. I served 24 hours in jail one time. Long time ago. And it was a he said, she said. And in that situation, for those 24 hours of being in jail, I knew this was not where I wanted to be. However, because someone says something, the police don't do, in most cases, their due diligence to get to the bottom or the truth of what went on. They're only concerned about making a case against whoever is being charged. I won't get into specifics, but 24 hours in jail made me realize that's not a place I want to be. And then I think about these men who know they've done nothing wrong. And you can talk about the one with the marijuana, $20 worth for a life sentence. Come on. But they know they did nothing wrong to be serving the time they did. But you're in prison on a life sentence for nothing. And I reflect on my 24 hours, and then I cannot imagine a year, 2 years, 3 years, so on, and so on, knowing you're somewhere that you shouldn't be, but nobody's listening to you tell your truth and what you know to be true. We're in a sad state of affairs, y'all, because this is not just something that happened this week. It's just ironic that all 4 of these men were released this week. But when we talk about the people we elect, these judges that have been put in all these different places that the Republicans have been doing behind everybody's back, nobody's paying attention to. When I tell you to make sure you look down the whole ballot of these judges when they're running for positions, for these offices, and they're not running against anybody. So it's basically a free pass to get in there. I'm not saying all judges are bad. I'm not saying all police officers are bad. What I'm saying is, please do your damn job the way you're supposed to do it. Look at the investigation of someone else like you would look at the investigation of one of your own family members. Because I guarantee if it was one of your family members, you would look everywhere to find evidence to exonerate them. You should do the same thing to make sure that you have the right person before they're up for a sentence of life in prison. And then 44 years later, they're free to walk the face of the earth, not knowing who they are, because all they ever known was being behind bars, like a caged animal. But hey, as long as I have my freedom, most people will say, I'm good. They shouldn't have done the crime. They shouldn't have been where they weren't supposed to be. Come on. We just seen this. Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago, 12 police officers busted into a woman's house, Miss Young's house. Wrong address, Breonna Taylor. I keep saying Breonna Taylor because this could have ended up the same way. But when we get up when we start protesting about these things and get upset about these things, we're looked at like we're protesting about the wrong things. But let me ask you a question. We're protesting about people's lives. You're protesting about a damn election that you feel was unjust because your person didn't get voted in. What's right about that? Burning signs that say Black Lives Matter, almost burning down a historic church down in DC, all the things you can think of that reckon back to the Ku Klux Klan back in the day. But we've come a long way. Oh, we've come a long way. If we've come a long way, we sure got a long way to go. A long way to go. It just upsets me, y'all. It upsets me. Mind, body, and soul. Mind, body, and soul. This is going to be very simple today. Very, very, very simple. The reason for the season. The reason for the season. Friday, y'all. Christmas is on Friday. We got this pandemic going on. We got all this controversy going on with the election. We got so many things going on right now. I know for a lot of people, it's hard to concentrate on the reason for the season. But as I always mention to you guys on this show, and I will not stop saying it, we always have to remember that God is in control. The reason for the season is when you talk about Christmas, the story of, Jesus born in the manger. Well, and there's things that say he wasn't born on Christmas Day, more like in the summer. It's some books you read. But we celebrated Christmas. And I want everybody to take some time during this week before we get to Christmas Day. And I want you to go back, if you don't have children, grandchildren, anything like that, or even if you do, I want you to reflect on the innocent years you had when Christmas came around. And I want you to reflect on the things that brought joy to your life during Christmas. As we get older, at our age now that we're at, most everybody listens is about my age, but when we get older and we sit back and we think about Christmas and going out and running, buying gifts and all those different things and being in traffic and not wanting to fight those mall crowds and everything like that. But then go back to a time when you didn't have to worry about that. Go back to a time when all you had to do was help your mother and father decorate the tree or put decorations up and, put them icicles on the tree and hang the bulbs and different things like that. And some folks would put milk and cookies out for Santa Claus and all those type of things. The innocent years. The years where your main concern wasn't coronavirus, unemployment, moratoriums for evictions and foreclosures and things. None of that. A time where you could just be carefree. All you worried about was Santa going to bring you what you wanted? Were you going to get up that Christmas morning and go to the tree and find something different than what you asked for and be surprised? Or to see the smile on your parents' face when you opened your gifts, knowing that they were the one that bought it? Well, I probably shouldn't say that on here because some kids might be listening, but you know what I'm saying. But those days when innocence ruled and ignorance was just a word. At this point in our lives, ignorance rules. Innocence is something that is an afterthought. It's one of those things where Christmas comes around. One of the main things I think about is my grandmother, when she used to do her morning Christmas breakfast with the traditional fried oysters for breakfast and things that our family used to do. And there would be a competition between her and my mother and, my aunts of who could make the oysters, whose oysters tasted better. And, and that let's not forget Christmas with the applesauce cake. We won't even get into that of the competition of whose was better and who made it better and who's tasted better. Those type of competitions, friendly competitions that you recall and you remember, because it's all about the joy of the season. Everyone getting together and the competition was lovely because we got to eat it all. We got to taste it all. No matter who was cooking it, no matter whose was best. We never said whose was best. We just were glad to eat it. The years of innocence of childhood I would tell everybody right now, this week, during this week, turn your TVs off, turn the news off, turn all those things off. Find your radio station that plays Christmas music. You know, that old favorite, In My Mind, you know, the Temptations, you know, Silent Night. But find a station that plays Christmas music and just let that resonate through your household, through your heart, and go back. Go back to a time where innocence ruled. Innocence was key. Because as we grow and the more responsibilities that come with us, we lose sight of the innocence of who we were. Go back, y'all. Take the time and just go back. Christmas. Think about the ones we've lost and celebrate the ones that are still here. I know everybody can't get together because of this coronavirus and all that, but the ones that you have close to you, enjoy them. Celebrate this holiday twofold. As a reflection of the past and a door opening for the future. We're going into a new year, and we'll talk about that next week. But reflect, go back, make it happen. Earl Williams, yes, sir, bro. Ethan Johnson, what about us in Georgia who are still fighting? Hey, make sure you get out there and vote, but you can't tell me that you can't find time with all this chaos going on to go back to that innocent time. Hell, go out there and buy you a bike. You remember that Christmas you got your first bike or your Hot Wheels? Oh, not the Hot Wheels, the big wheel. All those things. Just take a ride. Go around and look at the Christmas lights on people's homes. It'll take you back to a time that we've forgotten. And I guarantee you, once you take that time, put on that Christmas music and just reflect on the past, all this stuff going on around us right now will become an afterthought. Let it go and let God. As I mentioned in the beginning, God is in control. Do it for yourself, do it for your family, and do it for your mental health. It's the reason for the season. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. You know, we're within a week. We're within the week of Christmas. And I brought some things up that's going on in the world, you know, with the cyber attack from Russia and, you know, the raid in Chicago, the 4 men who were released this week and everything. But I know, even though I report a lot of news during the week, I know someone comes out of this better than they came in. Better than they came in. Ethan Johnson, no job, no openings, maybe selling home in January. Yeah, I hate to hear that, bro, because there's a lot of people out there that's going to be suffering right now. Happy holidays to you, sir. Appreciate that, Melvin Jackson. You know, and Melvin, Ethan, you just touched on something, you know, and that's what I'm saying is we all know people, or we are those people who are going through right now with everything's going on. And I know it's hard to go and reflect, like I mentioned in the Mind, Body, and Soul segment, but find some time. But with all these people that I talked about, these 4 people that were released from prison, you know, Miss Young, who a year ago, now she's going to be getting some justice finally for what went on after a year. The cyber attacks, as I mentioned, everything is going on with this election and everything. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, as I told y'all a couple weeks ago when I decided to take off for a show, it's time for us all to just sit down for a minute. Take a seat. Sit down, turn off the news, turn off the TV, put on some jazz, some Christmas music, and just relax. Make it some hot cocoa or hot toddy or whatever your beverage may be of choice. And you and your family just sit down and talk. Not about everything that's going on, but about each other. because life is too short, as we found out during this year with this pandemic. I mean, as I've always mentioned, we go back to Kobe Bryant that we lost back in February. This season, reflect. Take time, sit down, enjoy your family that you have with you. Zoom with those people that are far away, but know that this too shall pass. And we will have some sense of normalcy. I'm predicting April, May, hopefully. Next week, day after Christmas, we're going to be talking about New Year's. And for New Year's, this is what I want everybody to think about before we get to the show next week, before we get into that. For New Year's next Saturday, the New Year's show that I'm going to do next Saturday, I want everybody to think about this. I want you to identify one thing you have realized you can do without since everything that's gone on this year. One thing that you realize that you can do without since this pandemic started up until the end of the year. Something that you can do without, that because of this pandemic, you had to totally let it go. One thing. Also, identify one thing that you started doing during the pandemic that you realized you were good at, or you realized it was something that brings you joy that you will continue doing going into 2021. We're going to talk about that next week, and we're going to, I hope to have a joyful show next week on the 20, going into the New Year's, and I'll have some different things going on. But, hey, keep your heads up, y'all. Keep your heads up. And as I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely keep your faith in God. It's the reason for the season. Enjoy yourself, love one another, and you know what? Don't take life for granted. Love those around you. Reach out to those that you may not have spoken to in a long period of time. Because as we grow and distances comes between us, the friendships don't falter. What we do is we just don't find time for the things that we feel are important. We need to do more of that. I appreciate y'all. Tune in next week. Enjoy your Christmas, and I'll see y'all on the 26th. Love y'all, and I'm out. Peace.